All right, y'all. I'll go ahead and get started while some people filter in, just because we have a lot to cover and not a whole lot of time. So first of all, thank you all so much for joining. My name is Mark Horvath. I teach at the University of Missouri School of Journalism in the US, and am very excited to have all of you joining us this morning. A couple things, or this afternoon or this evening, depending, of course, on where you are. A couple of things I wanted to just say before we get started to make sure you all feel like you're in the right place. This is an intro to spreadsheet session. So we're going to be starting at the very beginning. I'll go quickly through some of that, but this is the very beginning. And there's another session tomorrow. What we're going to do today, just so you know, so if this all sounds like things you've covered before, I want to let you know that what we're going to be doing is we're going to be writing formulas. We're going to be doing some basic math. We're going to be doing, and we're going to be doing a few other things to get you comfortable using the spreadsheet. And this is important, using a spreadsheet for journalism. So it's not just the idea that you know how to open up a spreadsheet and use it, but some of the things we'll try to talk about with the time we have are why you would do this to find stories and to find news. That's really the point. A lot of people know how to use spreadsheets, and that's great. But what we're going to also be talking about, in addition to the technical stuff, is why you'd want to do this for stories and how you can use this as a tool to find news. The next session is tomorrow, and it's going to get into things like, well, sorting, but we'll do a little of that, filtering, and something called pivot tables. That's tomorrow's session. All right, so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. So I'm going to dispense with too much of the intro just because we don't have a lot of time, and I want to make sure we cover as much ground as we can. A couple of important notes. If you need me to repeat something, if you want me to go over something again, if I'm going too fast, if you just have a comment you want to make, please do that. It's good to know in real time. I'll keep the chat open, and Peter, who's also helping us out today, will be watching the chat and will let me know if there's something that I really need to do. But please don't hesitate. If something doesn't make sense, if you disagree with something, if you want to make a point, please do it. All right, very good. So also I'll let you know, I did upload a few spreadsheets to the conference site. I don't know that we'll have time to use those, but you can also download them for practice purposes if we don't. And so, all right, I'm going to share my screen then, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I am going to be using Google Sheets because I felt like that might be fairly universal. Some of you might be using Microsoft Excel. For everything that we're going to be doing this morning, it should all work the same. It doesn't matter. For the things we're going to do today, pretty much any spreadsheet software that you have access to on your computer, or Google Sheets, which is free and online, should work for you. So if anyone doesn't, please open whatever you're going to use, whether it's Excel, whether it's Google Sheets, whether it's the Apple version, which I actually have a Mac and I can't remember what it's called. Any of those would be fine. But please open up a blank spreadsheet with whatever you're going to use. And I'm just going to talk about a couple of super quick basic things while you do that. A few fast things to know that are going to be important. Let's see. These boxes are cells, right? And every cell has an address, and that address is going to be really important for us to use today. So I'm in cell B3, I'm in cell A1, I'm in cell D9, and that's going to matter a lot when we start to write formulas and do things. Let's see what else I can tell you that really matters. You'll notice at the bottom, we're in sheet 1. In a spreadsheet, you can open up multiple pages. We're not going to do that today. You will be doing that tomorrow if you join the second session, but I just wanted to point that out. Let's see, what else do I really need to know? The other thing that's important to think about here is, obviously, a spreadsheet is built in columns and rows. And the reason that matters is that as you progress, if you decide that you want to learn other data tools, many of them work in columns and rows. The normal next step for people after they get comfortable with a spreadsheet is to use something called a database manager. They're teaching classes here in SQL, which is a database manager. And it also looks like columns and rows. Mapping software, if you want to learn how to use maps to analyze, to use geography to analyze, behind the scenes, that's columns and rows. So once you get comfortable with a spreadsheet, it allows you to move on to other things. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about that as well. But the other thing to know is, for most journalists, this is all you need. I cannot overstate that. You can do so many stories, both quick dailies and bigger investigative and enterprise pieces, with just the spreadsheet. So please understand that if this is all you learn, you're going to have tools that will allow you to do plenty. All right. Good deal. So hopefully everybody has, if you don't, please let us know in the chat, but hopefully everybody has a blank spreadsheet open. And what we're going to do is we're going to build our own small spreadsheet, and then we're going to do stuff to it. So if everybody could go to the spreadsheet that you've got, and in column A, we're going to call the first column name. We're going to be building a small little salary table, and then we're going to work with the salaries. So name, we're giving the first, whenever you work with data, you want to make sure you have column headers, which are just the names of your column in row 1. So name, and then in column B, salary. And for the moment, that's it. Name and salary are our column headers. Hopefully you've got that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create a little small company or government agency or whatever you want it to be with 5 employees. And I just saw who was signing in. And so some of you guys are going to be my employees, I hope, or our employees. I do not run the company. So if everyone could enter these names in column A. So we have 5 employees and we have the headers. If you like, sometimes I like the headers to be in bold. I just find it easier to read. You can highlight the whole row like this by clicking on the number 1. You highlight the whole row blue. You can do Control B, Command B, depending on the kind of computer you have. You don't have to do this. I just find it easier to read. All right. So we have our company and we have 5 employees. Now we're going to give them all salaries. A very important thing to note, when you type numbers in, don't type commas, don't type decimal, well, you need decimal points if you need them. Don't type commas, don't type dollar signs, none of that. Sometimes spreadsheet software has problems with that, and we can add that on if we need to. So no commas, no nothing. So Amra's going to make 110,000 of whatever kind of money we're using. So if you could just type in 110,000, Martin's going to make 60. Olga's going to make 55. Syed is going to make 50. And Mark, me, is going to make 45,000. So please type that in so you have these numbers to work with. And y'all, while this is super, super basic, this is data. So working with this is data journalism. You don't have to make this harder than it needs to be. Oftentimes when I'm doing stories here, we'll use data to find one number or one figure to put into our story, and it's all we need. Sometimes I've done projects where I worked on data for weeks. It just depends, but it doesn't have to be complicated. All right. So we have a salary. Let's say that we got this salary database from whatever organization it is that we're covering that we care about. The first thing I might want to figure out is what's the total payroll for this organization, the total payroll. So what we're going to do is start adding our own information to this data. Whenever you do that, 2 things. The first one is if you download data from a website or you obtain data from a person, make a copy, save the original copy, and never ever do anything to it. The reason for that is when you're inside data and messing with it, you can create problems. You could change a number. You could add errors in. You want to save an original version, so if you mess it up, you can just copy the original again and start over. So always make a copy. I'm not going to really do it, but you would just do File, Save As, and then you would call it something different, but just make a copy. All right. The next thing to know is when you're going to start doing your own work, you want to leave a blank row before you start, and I'll show you why in a little while, but it matters. So leave a blank row between the original data and the work you want to do with it. Always leave that blank row. What we're going to do then in row 8 is add this up. So I'm going to label it. I'm going to call it total because I want to remember what I've done. And then I'm going to click my cursor over on cell B8. And what we're going to do is we're going to write a formula to add up these numbers. Another key thing to remember, if you haven't done this before, I'd write this down somewhere. Whenever you're asking a spreadsheet to do something, anything, whatever it is, when you're not just entering information like we just did, whenever you're asking the spreadsheet to do something, the first thing you type is an equal sign. And that equal sign is, it's guessing what I want. I don't want it to. Sorry, I'll get rid of that. The equal sign tells Excel, now I'm going to do something. I'm not just entering information into the spreadsheet. I want to do something. So that's the equal sign. Always start with that. And then there are formulas. You know, I should have uploaded this. I will talk to Peter and share this so you guys can get access to it. But there are a number of formulas that you can use with spreadsheets. And I have a handout that I can give you which lists lots of them. We're only going to use 3 or 4 today. The formula to add up a row is sum. S-U-M. And what that says is, I'm going to add up. I now want to add things together. So equals tells the computer I want to do something. Sum, S-U-M, tells it I want to total things, to add them up. And then you open parentheses. Whenever you have a formula word like sum, the next step is to open parentheses or brackets. So the formula always looks like equals, formula word, whatever that is, and then open brackets or parentheses, always. And then we tell the computer, it's guessing for me, but I'm going to type this in because it doesn't always guess correctly. I'm going to tell it the range of numbers I want to add up. I'm going to start with Amra's salary, which is in cell B2, right? You can look and see that salary is in B2. Then I type a colon, which means through. We'll do this again, so we'll do this several times, so we'll get practice. Through, and I tell it where to stop, which is at Mark's salary, which is B6. Oops. And then I close the parentheses. So before I hit enter, the equal sign tells the computer I'm going to do something. SUM is this formula that I want to use. There's lots of formula words. We'll use a few of them. Open the parentheses or brackets. Tell the computer the range of numbers you want to work with. You don't have to include them all if you don't want to. B2 through B6, close the parentheses or the brackets, and hit enter or return, depending on what kind of computer you're on. And it adds up our total, which is 320,000. If anyone didn't get that, let me know. I'll also show you up here, you'll notice that when I click on the 320,000, I see 320, but if I look up here, this is called the formula bar where I'm circling with my cursor. And that shows what the computer sees. I see 320,000. The computer sees my formula. So if I wanted to go fix it, I could go up to this line and change the formula if I wanted to. Everybody good? If you're not, let us know in the chat. All right, cool. All right, so now I know my total. I might want to figure out what my average employee makes. I might want to be able to put in my story, what does the average person make who works for my company? So let's go to cell A9 and let's label it average, because that's what we're going to figure out. And now let's go to cell B9. And now we're going to do a different formula to figure out the average, but they all start the same way, which is the equal sign. So equals tells it's guessing wrong right now, but equal tells the computer what I want to do. Now, instead of sum, S-U-M, the word for average is just average. So I literally write the word average because that's the formula word for an average. I open the parentheses or brackets, and I want to use the same range of numbers, B2 through B6, and I close it. So again, if you look at this, it looks just like our last formula, except we've changed the formula word. Equals average instead of sum, open parentheses, range of numbers, close parens. So it looks exactly the same, but when we change that word, we change what the spreadsheet's going to do to that range of numbers. I hit return. And my average salary, $64,000. I want to talk about this for a second. And there's a question. We're going to get to that, George. This is an average. It is the mean. It's the mean, and that's what I want to talk about now. It's a good question. What this is, and you'll notice the problem with this. What journalists mostly use when they're looking at numbers is the average. That's what most journalists use. It's often the wrong number to use, however. And some of you will know this, but many journalists, trust me, when I look at work, don't. Because look at our salaries, right? Look at our, we're saying that the average salary for this company or this organization is $64,000. But if you look at our list of actual people, how many people really earn $64,000 or more? Only one. So if I work for this company and I see that the journalist tells me the average salary is $64,000, I know that's wrong. It's the correct math. It's wrong practically because almost nobody earns that much money, right? And the reason we don't is because AMRA is the outlier. This salary is so much higher than everybody else's that when you do an average, it raises the whole thing up and makes the numbers misleading. As a quick aside, this is why if you get news releases from companies or you get news releases from organizations and they give you an average, be skeptical. Because, for example, if I have employees, if this is a company where employees are complaining that they're not being paid enough, for example, I could put out a news release saying, I don't know what everyone's complaining about. The average salary in my company is $64,000. Yes, but no. So to George's question in the chat, the next thing we're going to try to do is the median. And a lot of people think they can't use a median in a story because people don't know what it is. But I think you can, and sometimes you have to. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the median, let me explain real quick what that is. The average or the mean, which is what we just did, adds all the numbers together and divides by the number of numbers. So it added all these up and divided by 5. What the median does is it takes all the numbers in a group, no matter how many there are, and puts them in order from highest to lowest and picks the one in the middle. And I don't even always understand why, but oftentimes that's a more realistic number to use when you're trying to show the typical thing, the typical number, the typical salary, whatever it might be. So let's try the median and see how it looks. So in cell A10, we're going to label our work for median. And then in cell B10, just like we've been doing, first thing we're going to type is the equal sign, lets the computer know I'm about to do some sort of work. It keeps guessing that I want to sum it up. Ignore that. Excel doesn't do that. Google Sheets tries to be more helpful than I'd like it to be. Surprisingly, the formula word for median is median. And then I open the parentheses and I want to work on the same range of numbers. So I tell the computer B2 through, which is the colon, B6, and I close the parentheses or brackets. So remember, it looks the same. Equals, formula word, median, brackets, B2 to B6. And then we hit enter. And you'll see the median, the middle salary, and you can tell it is by looking at it, is $55,000. In this case, I would argue as a journalist, that's a better number for me to use because there are people who earn both above and below that 55. It's closer to what most people earn. I often get asked this question, which is, but that doesn't take into account the outlier, the big salary. And you're right. So as a journalist, what you'd want to do, and this is why it's important to get the actual data and not just trust the news releases or the summaries that people send to you. I would include in my story, while you could say the median salary, or if you're afraid people might not know what that is, you can say something like the typical salary or something like that. But I would also add a sentence saying, however, at least one employee makes more than 100,000. And I would just point that out with an extra sentence because that person might be important for my story. And there's not a statistic which is really going to accurately reveal that. Here's another little tip in case it's helpful. What I often do when I'm asking people, when they want to give me their average, I'll also ask for the median, ask for both. If the average and the median are very close together, that's a clue to you that there are no outliers, there are no really big or really small numbers. If the average and the median are close, then the group of numbers is fairly close together. If the average and the median are very different, then you know that you have a number or a small group of numbers that's much higher or much lower than everything else, and it's a clue to ask more questions. Because remember, y'all, I don't know about you, I hated math when I was a student, hated math as a young journalist, didn't like it. And I still don't love it, but I just have to be able to do some things to be able to do my job. But I didn't learn how to use a spreadsheet because I wanted to learn how to use a spreadsheet. I don't care. I learned how to use a spreadsheet to do stories, to do better stories, to be able to dig deeper, to be able to find more. And so this is a tool to find stories, to find facts, to put things into the news. And that's why I'm saying, think of it that way as opposed to just learning formulas and learning numbers. To Maria's question, you probably, one of two things, and I can't see your screen, but check, if you get a different number than what I've got, and what I would recommend is do the work twice sometimes and make sure you get the right answer. So Maria, probably one of two things. Either there's a typo in the list of salaries, so double check that and make sure all the salaries are right. You might be missing a zero somewhere or have an extra one, that often happens. And it looks like since your median's higher, you probably have one number that's too low. Or double check that when you did the formula, it included the entire range, B2 at the beginning to B6 at the end. There you go. That's what I thought. So, right, always double check and always check your work. So that's a great point. Any other questions at this before we start to do some more stuff? The other thing I'll tell you guys, if you haven't done this before, is this. It all seems fairly, for many of you, this will seem fairly simple when we're doing it together. When you have to do it by yourself, it's a whole nother thing. So I do have some handouts, and I should have uploaded them before the session, and I'm terribly sorry, but I'll get them to GIJN and I'll make them available for anybody who wants them. But the other thing I'd recommend, we're about to do that horizontally. We're about to do it. Save the spreadsheet that we're doing now, because this works like a cheat sheet. If you want to remember how to add things up, all you have to do is open this spreadsheet and click on what we added up, and the formula is right here at the formula bar. For averages, right here. For medians, right here. So you can use the spreadsheet that we're building today as a reminder of how to do these formulas. So that I would strongly recommend saving that. Cool. Any other questions? We're about to go horizontal, so that's good. Any other questions? Okay. Then the next thing that might happen, and oftentimes what I find myself doing when I'm doing news stories, is comparing year to year. You know, I preach this to my students here too, and I run a newsroom here as well. So when we're doing our stories, you know, you don't want just 1 year of budget information, for example. You don't really want just 1 year of salaries. You want information over time. so you can look for patterns, so you can check for trends, so you can look for outliers and great change. We have some budget data. I don't know if we'll get to it today, but if we do, I'll show you what I mean. So what we're going to have we're going to have another year's worth of salaries so we can do some better and more deep comparisons. So in column C, let's type a column called news salary. And let's say that we're covering an organization, it's budget time, and these are the new salaries for our employees. All right. So let's see. I hope everyone's got that. Give me one quick second. Let's go ahead and give Amra 115,000 this time. Let's give Martin 64,000. Let's give Olga 58,000. We're being decently generous, I feel. Let's give Syed 53,000. And let's give me 49,000. All right, now I'm going to show you several things we're going to do. We obviously need to total this up. Hopefully everyone has that typed in. I'll give it just a second. All right. We're going to want to figure out the total for this year. There are some shortcuts to do this that I'm about to show you, but first I'd like us to practice one more time typing it out. So again, remember, the first thing I type, if I want to tell the computer that I'm going to do some sort of math or formula or anything, is equals. And then the formula word to add stuff up, once again, sum. I open the parentheses or brackets, and it's going to look like the last one, except now we're in column C, not column B. So I'm going to start with C2. And you'll notice the computer highlights where you're starting. It allows you to check your work. Notice C2 is now highlighted, colon for through, and stopping at C6. If I accidentally put C5 or something else, or let's see, if I accidentally put C5, I can look and see that my box actually stops too soon, so I can go back and fix that, C6. So I see that it looks right. I close my parentheses or brackets, and I hit enter or return. And my new payroll is $339,000. Now, don't do this, because don't do anything yet, because I want to show you a couple of things. When we've already got the formulas written the first time, as we do new columns, we don't necessarily have to retype everything. This is I'm going to show you 2 or 3 different ways to copy formulas. It can save you time, and it can also save you making a mistake. This works the same way in Google Sheets as it does in Excel and in most other spreadsheet software. So you should be able to do this for anything. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to do the average for my new column. The first way to do it is just to copy and paste as you would in a Word file or anything else. I click on the thing I want to copy. So I click on the 64,000. Remember, we were talking earlier that while I see 64,000, the computer up here sees the formula, and that's the key. I see a number, but the computer sees the formula. So if I copy this cell and paste it, I'm not copying and pasting the number, I'm copying and pasting the formula, and the formula will automatically adjust to know that it's in column C instead of column B, because the computer is smarter than me. So you can either right-click copy or Control or Command C, whatever you like to do, and you'll get a bunch of little lines around it, a bunch of little dotted lines, either right-click copy or Control or Command C. And then you go to the cell you want to paste it into, which is right next door, and then either right-click paste or Command Control V. And notice it pastes it, but it doesn't paste 64,000, it pastes 67,800. And when I click on it, I can look at the formula line and see that it pasted the formula and automatically adjusted it for the new column. That makes sense to everybody? So it's just copy and paste. That's the simplest way. It's not the fastest way, but it's the simplest way to copy a formula. And you can always use that one if you want to. I'm going to show you one that's quicker and one that's better if we had lots of columns instead of just one. Let's say I wanted to copy a formula for many columns instead of just one. I'm going to show you a way that's faster than what we just did. Again, if you don't like this, you never have to use it. It doesn't matter. That's the beauty of this. I now want to move the median and copy it to my new column. So what I'll do is I'll click on the cell I want to copy, which in this case is B10. I could copy and paste, or look at, if you notice on the screen, at the bottom right-hand corner of the cell, there's a little thicker box. Hopefully you all see that right here. The box is a little bit thicker. Notice the cursor. The cursor shape, it's going to be different for different computers. But for me, the cursor shape is an arrow. For you, it might be something else. When I put the cursor over though, when I put it over the box, not here, not the hand, when I put the cursor over the cell line, I get the hand. We don't want that. But when I put the cursor over that little box in the bottom right, it turns into a little plus sign. That's what I want, is the little plus sign. And that's true on any version of the software, the little plus sign. Then I'm going to hold down Command or Control and drag. Hold on a second, I should do it again. I drag over with my mouse. Sorry, let me do that again. So cursor over the plus, drag with the mouse key, let go, and look at what it does. Copies the formula and fixes it. I'll do it again. I put the cursor over the bottom little plus sign. The bottom box, get a plus. Hold down the mouse key, drag, let go. And the reason this is good is because if I wanted to drag it for 6 or 10 columns, I can do that, and it would automatically do the math for all those columns and adjust for each column. Everybody cool? Questions or concerns about that? Once again, we also see that in this case, the median is still better because the top salary is still so much bigger than everything else. All right, any questions on that before we do something else? All right, you guys are doing awesome and amazing, by the way. I'm going to put my, right now, I'm going to put my email in the chat. So if you guys want to follow up with me after this, if you have questions, if you're working on something, you can email me anytime you want. I love talking to people, and so you can reach out to me whenever you like, and I mean that sincerely. And I'd love to get back to you and try to help you out if you run into trouble and stuff. It's always really cool to hear from people after we do these kinds of things. So that's my email here at Mizzou. And you know, there may be a delay because of time zones and all that other stuff, but I promise that I will get back to you if you get it, if you reach out. All right. So the next thing we're going to do now, if I was doing a story and I had this salary database. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention to you before I forget, we're only adding up 5 numbers with these formulas, but if we had 5,000 people, we could add them up with the same speed. The beautiful thing about Excel, like you could add up 5 numbers with a calculator, you'd be okay. But if we had 500 employees or 5,000 or 500,000, the formula still does it in 1 second, same way. That's one of the beautiful things about a spreadsheet, is the number of numbers doesn't matter. I mean, Excel can handle easily up to 1 million rows, 1 million rows. For most of you, that's way more than you're ever going to need. Someday it might not be, but for most of you, 1 million rows will cover you. All right, let's go to D1 because we're going to do something else. If I was doing a story, I might want to figure out who got the biggest raise, right? That might be cool to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call, let's just call this column change. In this case, everybody got a raise, but some people might have gotten a salary cut. So I don't want to call it raise or increase because until I do the math, I don't really know which one it is. So let's just call it change. And then for this one, again, we're going to type, because we're going to do some sort of math or formula, we're going to type an equal sign. But I don't need a formula for this, because all I want to do is subtract the new salary minus the old salary to see the difference. It's what you would do for anything. You'd subtract the new one minus the old one. So I don't need a formula word. I'm just doing math. I could put parentheses or brackets. You don't have to, but you can. If you like to do it, it's fine. It doesn't matter. C2, which is the new salary, minus B2, which is the old salary. C2 minus B2, new salary minus the old salary. I hit enter or return, and I see that it's a $5,000 difference, right? We know this. We can look at it, but we know it's right. Now, I want to show you two things you can do, y'all, to copy this formula down so you don't have to do the whole thing. I will show you, and I'll do it more than once. The first option is to do what we just did. Take the cursor, hover over the bottom right corner till we get the plus sign, hold down the mouse key and drag down through number 6 and let go. And it does all the math at once. See? I'll do that again. Cursor over the plus sign, hold down the mouse key, drag down to me, do the math. But there's a faster way to do that too, and I'll show you. If you want to, there's a shortcut which allows you to do one click and do all the math. Same thing to start, put the cursor over the bottom right-hand corner of that cell till it turns into that plus. But instead of dragging, double click with the mouse. And what it'll do is it'll do the math all the way down the column until it gets to a blank row. So if we had 500,000 numbers, one double click would do the math for all 500,000 until it gets to the blank row. It's pretty slick. I'll do it again real fast. Cursor over the bottom right-hand corner, turns into a little plus sign, double click, does the math for all of us. If you don't like the shortcuts, you don't have to use them, but I did want to show you because it's a way, again, what I like about doing it this way is A, it's faster, and B, if I keep retyping the formula every time, I'm likely to introduce errors. The one problem is if the formula was wrong the first time and you copy it down, it's going to be wrong every time. So what I usually do is just look and make sure. It says it's a $5,000 difference, 115 to 110. I can see that it's 5,000. I know it's right. All right, any questions about that before we do the next thing? All right, our math is going to get slightly more complicated. By slightly, I mean slightly. We're going to figure out the percentage change. We've got the dollar change, the amount change. Now let's figure out the percent change. So let's go to column E and type in percent change. All right, so before I do this, I've worked with lots and lots and lots of journalists, and most of them do not know the formula for percent change. They do it wrong. And if you do it wrong, the math still happens, but you get the wrong number. So I'm going to show you guys a formula. I used to work for an organization called IRE, Investigative Reporters and Editors, and a longtime IRE member came up with this formula. By the way, there's a great book if you're interested. IRE sells it. It's called Numbers in the Newsroom, and it's math for journalists, which is awesome. Numbers in the Newsroom. It's an ebook version. It's very, very inexpensive. I'll put that in the chat as well. It's Numbers in the Newsroom at ire.org. And you might want to check it out. That book has saved my life many times. But so percent change, sometimes when people are doing percent change, they'll just take the biggest number, whatever it is, and divide it by the oldest number, the smallest number, the biggest one minus the smallest one, but that's not always right. What you really do, the formula to remember is new minus old divided by, divided by the old one. New minus old divided by old, or no. N-O-O. New minus old divided by old. Do journalists like doing math? No. New minus old divided by old. Always, every time, no matter what. Always. And so I just write that down, and it's helped me avoid all sorts of mistakes. As an editor, I've caught mistakes in people's work. So now let's take a look and see what that looks like for real. We'll go to cell E2, and just like we have been the whole time, we're going to type the equal sign, because that's how we get started. The equal sign tells us, and now we're going to do math. Still no formula, because we're doing math, right? Excuse me. But we'll need the parentheses for this for sure, and I'll explain why in a second. So open your parentheses or your brackets, and then the new minus the old. The new salary is in column C, so we type in C2, that's the new number, minus the old number, which is B2, new minus old, close the parentheses, and in a spreadsheet, divided by is the forward slash. So that forward slash means divided by the old number, which is again B2. That's new minus old divided by old. I'm going to let that up there for just a second. And the reason you have to have the parentheses here is, if you remember from grade school, it's the order of operations. You put the thing in parentheses that you want to happen first. So we wanted to do C2 minus B2 and then divide that result by B2. So without the parentheses, it will do it wrong. So it'll do C2 minus B2 divided by B2. So the parentheses are important. But again, you're going to have this spreadsheet with the formula, so you can always come back and click on it to remember. I hit return. All right. I did not want you to do that. And then we'll make this look like a percent in a second. We'll do that in 1 second. First, I want to copy the results down. So I'm going to do it the fast way. I click on the formula itself on cell E2. I go to the corner in the right to get the little plus sign, double click, and it does my percent all the way down. Now, if I want that to look like a percent, and I do, it's easy enough. I can just, now there's faster ways to do this, guys. There are shortcuts, but because there's different kinds of software, I'm going to show you a way that works. I click, if I wanted to change this entire column so it's always percents, I can click on the E itself at the very top, column E. So the whole thing's highlighted. I'm going to right click. Second, where is it? You know what?
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Sorry, that's my Siri on my watch. My apologies. You know what? Just in the interest of time, let's do this. We can click on column E, highlight the whole column, go up to the top, and you'll see that there's a percentage sign right here. There's also a money sign. Mine's in dollars. Yours can be whatever it is, of course. I do percents, and it's going to convert these to percents, which makes them easier to watch. So click on the whole column, highlight the whole column, come up here, click on percents. And if you wanted more or fewer decimal points, you can use these arrows either way to either add or reduce decimal points. I'm going to leave it like this. But if you think it's easier to have fewer, you can remove one. I'll do that. This arrow removes them. This arrow adds them. I'm going to leave it like that, I think. Whatever looks good to you, it's not going to change anything. It doesn't change the math. All right. So now what I want to show you is, look at this. This is interesting, I think. And this is, again, why just percents and percent change can be very misleading. And when people give you percents or percentage change, you also want to get the real numbers. And here's why. Let's say that people are complaining that AMRA, and I hope I'm, the percent sign, it is going to be in Excel, it's still going to be at the top. You're going to have different menu lines depending on how you have your computer set up. But you should have, let's see, I can open Excel real quick. Hold on a second, I should have a spreadsheet open here. Is that a spreadsheet? I think so. Yeah. So in Excel, you're going to go to Home. And I'm trying to look too quickly here. Where's it showing up? I'm sorry. I'm going to get too distracted if I don't. You know what? Let me just let me keep things. I shouldn't do that. It's going to get confusing for people. George, I'll before we're done, I'll email you where to find it. I apologize for that. The other way you can do it, and well, I'll just show you at the end. I'll show you the way I prefer to do it in Excel anyway. There's a better way to change the formatting that I'll show you in Excel right before we finish for everybody who's using Excel. So just hold on to that thought. All right. Notice that in change, AMRA, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, has the biggest raise, right? The raise you really want to have is the $5,000, right? I'd rather have a $5,000 raise than a $4,000 raise or a $3,000 raise. That is what I would prefer to have. But let's say that people have been complaining because they think there's favoritism in the company. The company can announce, oh no, we did not give, are you kidding? AMRA only got a 4.5% raise. Martin got a 6% raise. Mark got almost a 9% raise. I'd rather be Mark, but I wouldn't. The percent change makes it look like I got the biggest raise by percentage I did, but I still got less money than the person who was already paid the most. And that's because when you increase a larger number, a smaller percentage still gives you more. So the point is, don't just trust percents and percent change, always ask. There's one other thing I want to show you guys real quick on this. I know you're going to do sorting in the next session, but I want to show you how to sort very quickly. And I also want to talk about why it matters, and then they'll reinforce that for those of you who are going to do tomorrow's session. It's pretty easy with only 5 numbers to see which the biggest and the smallest are. I can use my eyes. But if I had 500 employees, finding the employee with the biggest raise would be very difficult to do if I just had to scroll up and down and look at all the numbers. So sorting becomes key. And this is why, it's one of the reasons why we left this blank line. I'm going to want to sort these from highest to lowest, for example. Yeah, Joel, give me 1 second and I will. I'm going to sort these from highest to lowest under percent change, but I don't also want to sort the totals in because that would mess everything up. So I leave a blank line so I don't sort the things I don't want to sort. That's why I'm leaving that blank. I hope that makes sense. It's also why I left a blank row before I started typing this stuff over here. I don't want it included with my actual data, my basic data, which is this. So if I want to sort, the first thing I would do is highlight the part I want to sort. And there's more than one way to do that as well. You can simply start in the cell you want, use the mouse and drag. You can do that. And that's fine for a small set of numbers. I just did this. Get to any corner and highlight holding down the mouse key. But if I had a ton of data, that takes a long time. You can also click anywhere in the data and do Command or Control and the letter A. And what it does is it highlights everything until it gets to a blank row and a blank column. So again, just click anywhere in the data, Command or Control A, and that highlights all of the contiguous data. And Jewel, to answer your question real quick, I'll show you why. I'll demonstrate why. If you just, the biggest dollar change was Amra with $5,000. That's the raise that I want, is the $5,000 raise. But if the company just tells me percent change, her raise looks like it's the lowest. So I want a percent changes can trick me. So now to sort, what we're going to do is we're going to go to data. You have some menus up here at the top. Let's look at this for a second. And this is true for Excel, for Google Sheets, for everything. For numbers, which is what the Apple one's called. Sorry, I'd forgotten that. I have many choices. Most of the choices you're going to want to work with are under the data menu. So click on data. And I'm going to go down to sort range. In Excel, just pick sort, just sort. And you'll get a box that looks very much like this. Not exactly like this, but very much like this. And I'm going to tell it which column I want to sort. And if let me show you. You know how it just says ABC? You see this little box here? You'll have this in Excel too, but it'll be on the right. Click this arrow, and now it knows my column names. Makes it easier. So I tell it which column I want to sort by. I would like to sort by percent change. And then I tell it I want it smallest to largest or largest to smallest. I want largest to smallest, and usually journalists want the biggest, the most, the worst first. The only time I ever really sort A to Z is if I'm trying to get alphabetical order typically. So again, I pick the column I want to sort, and to get the column names, I clicked on data has a header row. This box right here, you don't have to, but it's easier. I choose percent change, I choose Z to A for highest to lowest, and then I click sort. And what it does is it arranges the entire thing by percent change. And now notice that it makes it look like, and I got the biggest percentage range, but I didn't get the most money. So I'd like to look at both things as a journalist and then decide which one is the most relevant for my audience. Any questions about that? So there's one more thing. There's 2 more things I actually want to do. We've got 10 minutes. I think we'll be good. You guys are an amazing and awesome group. I hope I haven't been going too fast. Yeah. The formula for percent change, if that's the one we're looking at, is right here at the formula bar. It's equal sign, parentheses, and then the new number, which was the new salary, C2, minus the old number, B2, with column C minus column B, depending on where you are. Then you close the brackets and divide by the old or original number, which is B2. So that's the formula for percent change. I'll leave it there for just a second while I'm talking. I'm going to show you one more formula, and then I'm going to show you how to make visuals out of this, how to make graphics that you could actually run if you wanted to on your website or in print or on air or whatever it is you guys do. I think we have time to do both of those things before we have to stop. All right, so now we're going to do a formula called percent of the whole. And this is really useful, especially for budget information. Let's say, for example, we'll do it with the salary information. You'll see why it's still interesting. Awesome. Okay. I'm told we can have a little bit of extra time, so I might steal a couple of extra minutes of your time, but not much, I promise. And then the system automatically shuts us off and exiles us to someplace scary, and I don't want to go there. All right. So percent of the whole can be really useful because like with a budget, for example, you might want to figure out which department's getting the biggest piece of the pie. In this case, I want to see how the employees break down. It would be another way that I could show how much more money Amra makes than everybody else, visually and numbers-wise. So let me show you the formula for this. So we're going to call it percent of the whole. Oh, okay, yes, we're going to sort again in a second, Trudy. If you just wait 1 minute, we'll sort our new one and I'll show you, okay? So we'll do that in just a second. So percent of the whole. This formula is a little bit tricky because there's an Excel problem to it. I want to show you how it works. It doesn't matter unless you want to copy the formula, but I want to show this to you so you never mess it up just in case. First of all, we always type the equal sign. Always, 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 never forget that. And then percent of whole is dividing the part, an individual piece, by the total. The part by the total is how you figure out the percent of the whole. So to figure out what part of the salary mine is, it would be, we'll use the new salary. We'll use column C. We could pick either one, it doesn't matter. It would be C2, oops, sorry. And you can put parentheses if you want, but you don't have to, but you can, it won't hurt anything. Divided by C8, and because C8, if we look, that's the total. This is the part, this is the total. So I'm going to say C8. And again, notice it highlights the two pieces. I know it's that, I know it's that, and that's what I want. And it's giving me percent of the whole. I'm going to go ahead and, I want this to look like percents. So I'm just going to do that again real quick. For you Excel folks at the end, stick with me for a second, I will show you. All right. So now we know that I earn 14% of the entire salary base. Now, you could write that formula in every box and it would be fine, but it doesn't work if you try to copy it down. I'm going to show you why. If this confuses anybody, don't worry about it, but I do want to show it to you guys for those of you who it will be helpful. If I copy the formula down, it starts to mess up. And let me show you why, and then I'll show you how to fix it, which is why I wanted to do this. You'll see that it did, my first formula is correct, C2 divided by C8. But when I copied the formula down, it copied everything down. So it did C3 divided by C9, but that's not what I want to do. Then it did C4 divided by C10, not what I want to do. And even worse, it did this divided by this. Whenever you get this, I wanted you to see this error message just so it doesn't scare you. If you ever get that in a box, it just simply means you tried to divide by 0 and it's impossible. See, because that's an empty cell. What the formula is doing, I will show you with my hands, is it's doing this, then this, then this. And we don't want it to. We want it to do this, then this, then this. We want to anchor this. We want to divide each one of these numbers into the total. I want to do C2 divided by C8, C3 divided by C8. So I don't want the second part of the formula to move. I hope that makes sense to y'all. So I'll show you how to fix that in case you ever have to do it. What I'll do is I'll go into the formula. I could retype it here, or I can go up to this formula bar that I showed y'all, and I'm going to use something called an anchor, which is the $sign. So I put the $sign in front of the C, the $sign in front of the 8, and it anchors that thing. It means if I copy this formula down, don't move this one. Move the top number, don't move the bottom number. When I hit enter or return, it doesn't change the first number, but when I copy the formula, it fixes all the rest. And I'll show you what it did. C2 divided by C8, C3 divided by C8, C4 divided by C8. When I dragged it, it changed the top number, but anchored the bottom one. You won't need this that much, but I just wanted you to show you that. And I also wanted you to see that error message, because that divide by zero thing you will get sometimes. So I wanted you to know what that is. Then to go to, for Shrudi's question, let's go ahead and sort by our percentage of the whole so we can practice sorting one more time. So to sort, I'm going to click anywhere in the data set that I want to sort, anywhere in it. I'm going to do Command A or Control A, depending on whether you're on a Mac or a PC. Highlights all the data. I'm going to stop for just a second to make sure everyone's got that highlighted. It highlights everything, but not this, because I don't want to highlight. I don't want to sort these totals. Don't want to do that. Then I'm going to go up to the data menu. And I'm going to skip these shortcut things and go to sort range. If I'm in Excel, I just go to data, then sort. It brings up this box. To make it easier, you don't have to do it, but if I click on this, sometimes Excel automatically does it for you. It puts the names of my columns, the names that I gave it there in column A. That's what a header row is. A header row simply means that column A is the heads, is the titles of my columns. That's all that means. I want to sort by percent of whole, my new column. And I'm going to sort biggest to smallest. You don't have to. I just usually do. So I pick my column and I pick my sort, in this case, largest to smallest. I hit sort. And now it puts the pieces of pie together. And we see that 1/3 of all the salaries going to one person. That's a pretty useful figure for a story, that 1/3 of all the salary goes to one person. All right. Last thing I'm going to show you, we're just going to go a couple of minutes long, because I know a lot of people like to do this, is how to make bar charts and pie charts out of these numbers. I want to show you all that, and then we'll be done. All right. So I might want to do a bar chart showing the salary from year to year, right? And if I was going to do that, the way to think about making charts is to sort of think about what you want to do before you start. And if anyone has got if anyone's brain is maxed out, you don't have to worry about this part, but it's pretty easy, and sometimes it's helpful to see things visually. So what I would want, if I wanted to do a chart comparing this year's salary and next year's salary, the old salary and the new salary, I'd need 3 pieces of information. I'd need the name, and I'd need this salary and the new salary. I'd need those 3 pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in cell A1, hold down the mouse key, and just highlight the pieces of data that I need, those first 3 columns. I don't want the rest of it for this chart, so I'm not highlighting it. Hopefully that makes sense, y'all. So I've highlighted the part I want for the chart. Then on Google Sheets, it's under Insert. Depending on the version of Excel you have, it may be somewhere else. We can take a look in a second if anyone wants to stick. But under Insert, and then I'm going to go halfway down, you'll see you have a choice for chart. All you do is click on that, y'all. And boom, I have a chart. I have the name, I have the new salary and the old salary. This would be a great chart to run with my story, because first of all, it shows how much more Amro earns than everybody else. And it lets me compare the raises from year to year. If you want it to look differently, you'll notice you have this thing again. This is only in Google Sheets. It's different for Excel, but you have the chart editor, and you could change the chart if you wanted to. You could pick a different view. I might want it to look like that, and I can just do that. You can then save this graphic as a JPEG or something else, and you could actually use it in print or online if you wanted to. All right. One last thing I want to show y'all, because to make charts, sometimes it's slightly more complicated, just slightly. I might want to make a pie chart. And to make a pie chart, you'd have to do the percent of whole. You have to do the math first. You can't do a pie chart unless you've already done the math, which is why we did percent of whole. So for my pie chart, though, here's where it's just a little trickier. I want the names in column A. I want the percentages of whole in column F, but not the stuff in the middle. right? Don't want the stuff in the middle. So the way to do this is to highlight the stuff you want in column A, hold down the Command or Control key, and highlight the stuff you want in column F. And notice I've got column A highlighted, column F highlighted, but nothing in the middle for this particular chart. Then I would do the same thing. Insert, pick chart, and I get my pie chart. And there's ways to make the labels go over the pieces of pie if you want to make it look prettier and all that, but I'm not going to mess with that today because we've already gone a bit long. So I'll wait for a second in case there's any questions from anybody. We covered a lot of stuff today, but I really recommend saving this spreadsheet and using it as a guide. Like I said, I'll talk to Peter. Yeah, I'll make this chart one more time for anybody who can stick around. If you have to go, I totally understand. You're going to highlight name, hold down the Command or Control key, and then move your cursor over and highlight % of the whole. Because the two pieces I want for this chart are the labels, the names. I don't need them. If I don't want to label the pieces of pie, I don't need column A. But if I want to label them, I do. And then I'm going to highlight this. And then I'll go to chart, insert, chart, get my piece of pie. It's going slow for me now. The web is just slow, but that's it. We've got to stop, it looks like. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate everyone taking the time with us this morning. Before the platform kicks us out, I'll stick around for a minute and I'll try to show a couple of Excel things if I have time, but I'm not sure when the platform says I gotta go. Thanks, y'all. All right, then Excel, get rid of this, call up a spreadsheet. All right, this is not perfect because my numbers aren't great. Let me make a new one. I'll just do name, salary. What was the thing we were, oh yeah, I was gonna show you how to make percents. That's easy. Okay, I'm just creating data, y'all, it doesn't matter. Those are names and the salaries are like 5,000. Wait, I have to do the percent. Wait, I'm not gonna have time. I'm not gonna have time to do this whole thing, guys. I'm sorry. I would have to create too much data to create the percents to label them, but I'll see if I can just show you where you find it. And they change its format. So what I like to do, for those of you who are on Excel, the way I really like to format things is I highlight the data that I want to format. I right click and I go to format cells. So again, highlight the columns you want, right click and select format cells. This is the best way to format stuff in Excel. And then you'll notice you can do lots of things. You can do number, currency, and you can do percentage. And then you can pick the number of decimal points that you want, and it will automatically format it. So when I'm using Excel, that's what I do. Highlight the numbers, right click, format cells. For those of you in Excel, I hope that's helpful. Anything else? Any final? Let's see. Okay, I got one. Let me read. Oh, undo the percentage action. So sure. So to fix things, all you got to do is literally let's just show. Let's say for a minute. Let's say that I typed in a wrong salary over here. I want to show you all what happens for those of you who are still around. Let's say Martin's original salary was really 50,000. I changed the 50. Watch what happens to all the numbers when I hit enter. Everything changes. It fixes the totals, the averages, the medians, the percent of change, the percent of whole. Fixing that one number fixes everything. So all you have to do, if you go back and fix your numbers, the formulas automatically adjust. If you messed up the formula, you can either come up here and fix it in the formula line or just start all over. Either way. So to fix the numbers, you can adjust one number, fixes all the formulas automatically adjust. And to change the formula, if you messed it up, and you will, trust me, you can fix it up in the formula bar. I hope that answered that question. Oh, export a chart. Okay, yeah. So there's more than one way to do it. If you right click in the chart, you should get some options for exporting it, for saving it as different kinds of files. All right, guys, I think we're about out of time. I believe we might have 2 or 3 minutes left. But again, you have my email address. Feel free to reach out. I have enjoyed getting to spend a little bit of time with you all, and please enjoy the rest of the conference.